This programme was made with support from the National Lottery Heritage Fund. This month we're in one of the most beautiful villages in North East Lincolnshire, famous for its RAF base and 13th century church, its talented residents and of course its magnificent six-sail windmill. Welcome to Waltham. There was almost certainly a settlement in Saxon times where Waltham village stands today, and signs of earlier Roman settlement. The name comes from the Saxon Walt, meaning woodland, and ham, meaning settlement. Waltham is listed in the 1086 Domesday Book, when the landowner was Count Allen. The listing shows a church and 2 salt pans. Although the village has grown considerably since then, it still retains a small village atmosphere and community spirit. Following the First World War, a village committee was convened with the aim of creating a war memorial to remember the people of Waltham who lost their lives. The memorial, unveiled on November the 11th, 1920, has been at the centre of Remembrance Day ceremonies for over 100 years. Parish Church of All Saints was built in the late 13th and early 14th century. Restorations in 1867 and 1874 by James Fowler of Louth included re-roofing, rebuilding the chancel and south aisle and adding a new vestry. In 1876 the north aisle tower and top stage were rebuilt by E.W. Fairbrother of Grimsby. A 3-bay chancel with organ chamber was added in 1911. The church was listed by Historic England in 1968 to preserve its fine features, including the perpendicular font featuring an ornate octagonal bowl with carved flowers and angels holding shields. As well as its historical significance, the church continues to be a vibrant heart of the local community. Another historic building, this time in Grimsby, is the home of community arts organisation Our Big Picture. We caught up with director Paula Dent to hear about the plans to make it more accessible.
It's all very exciting. We've just found out that we've got 180,000 from the Arts Council England to do capital investment work on the building that will enable us to do full access ability for the building and for our community. It is quite challenging because we've got a mix of ages of building here. So we've got a 1700 building dating the early Georgian, which in some cases is good because the doors are wider because of the design, but it was originally 3 cottages dating from that time. So there's a heritage conservation and repair project, but we don't want to just do that. What we want to do is learn from that. So we are developing a heritage skills program with it, and that will enable young people, particularly apprentices, to actually be able to come and get hands-on experience of working with lime mortar. What we're hoping is that by the end of the year, we'll have a really good idea of what our 3-year plan is and our 5-year plan, because we'll have so much evidence from an archaeological dig, from skills, from our arts program. So people, it's really widening up that reach and accessibility.
The village green here on the High Street was formerly the site of an old rectory. The rectory was demolished in 1958 and despite objections from the parish council, the village library was built on part of the land. In order to protect what was left of the green space, the parish council purchased the remaining land, which is now the village green. The anvil on the green was presented to the village by the wife of Harry Jackson, the last blacksmith in Waltham, who worked at his forge on Cheapside until it closed in 1968. Waltham has been home to many historic trades, including blacksmiths, bakers, and no doubt at some point candlestick makers. But when we think of Grimsby, we usually think of fishing. But did you know that it used to have a thriving print industry? Members of local community organisation, the Eleos Collective, have been investigating this fascinating part of our industrial heritage and displayed their findings in a recent exhibition at Grimsby Minster.
The Meters at Albert's is the project, and we're using it as a research, initial research ideas, and trying to collect stories, people who used to work in these places, and have an end showcase where people can then share their experience and actually for new people to find out about the area.
Well, this exhibition is the kind of culmination of our project so far, so all the research and the discoveries we've made since January. We've spoken to a lot of people that worked in the printing industry in Grimsby, and also people that remember the shop and in the marketplace and in the Riverhead Centre. We've also done a lot of archive work in the library with help from the archivist there and from Links Inspire. And we've just amassed loads of information so far. That's been kind of quite a while really to sort of tease out the important bits and put together like a bit of a timeline of the heritage of the printing industry locally. We've spoken to people like Walter that have worked in the industry but have still got a really vested interest and really have appreciated the opportunity to talk about the industry.
I started in 1976 in Scunthorpe, and I took a job as a letterpress compositor, and it was an apprenticeship, and I did a day release at Lincoln College of Art. And as you can imagine, there was cases of type, and everybody's familiar nowadays with 18 point and 24 point. So you'd probably do some display fonts for, say, a dance ticket, and you'd put together that by hand into a composing stick.
It is that generation that we're going to lose if we don't kind of tap into that information fairly quickly and be able to preserve it. We'd like to harness those skills, pass them on to the next generation.
In other heritage news, the Culture House have been bringing together generations of local people in a programme of family events around Grimsby Town Centre. The new Heritage and Construction Skills event is scheduled for Saturday, June the 15th at King's Hall, Cleethorpes. The event will showcase some of the trades available to people in the area and some of the many recent schemes and projects that have focused on restoration of our town's historic buildings. And the full programme of activities has been announced for Festival of the Sea on the 22nd of June, including an exciting message in a bottle world record attempt. Did you know that in the 1930s, Waltham had a small commercial airfield, which later became Grimsby Municipal Airport? With war looming, the Air Ministry took over the airfield in 1938 as a training ground for the RAF Volunteer Reserve. By 1940, mission huts began to appear around the village as Waltham became the home of 142 Squadron. The first operation was on the 30th of November when a Wellington bomber took off for Germany. By this time the airfield was called RAF Grimsby. They were replaced in 1942 by 100 Squadron, whose 16 Lancaster bombers joined hundreds of other planes in nighttime bombing raids over Germany, some as much as 6 hours flying time away. During operations from the airfield in World War II, 116 Lancasters and 48 Wellingtons, a total of 164 aircraft from the station, were lost. RAF flights from the airfield ended in 1945, and although attempts were made during the 1950s and 1970s to bring the airfield back into commercial use, the buildings fell into disrepair and the runways were torn up for the hardcore that would build the A15 to Humber Bridge. But the WAF canteen and kitchen still survive in Waltham today and are now the home of the RAF exhibition at the Museum of Rural Life in the Waltham Windmill Centre. Housed in this corrugated iron roof mission hut, the museum was opened in 1988 by a squadron leader from RAF Bimbuk. The exhibits and displays in this welcoming, family-orientated museum remind us of an English rural life long past, where children can learn what it was like to live in the days before television, dishwashers and microwaves.
Well, the museum basically is split into two parts. We've got the Rural Life Museum at one end, which tells the story of farming, of the farrier, of the wheelwright, of the carpenter. We've got a 1920s and 30s kitchen and parlour, and we've got an exhibit which looks at different types of media through the years. So you can look at different sorts of cameras or record players, tape recorders, those sorts of things. We've got some animal skulls. We've got a lion's animal skull, which children often say is a dinosaur, but we have to point out that if it was a dinosaur, it would be a fossil. The other half of the museum houses an exhibit for RAF Grimsby, Waltham, which was a Second World War bomber station.
Created in 2000, the RAF Grimsby exhibition commemorates the life and people of the World War II airfield. I'm told you can even try out a lightning injector seat. Very James Bond. I wonder if it's still operational. While you're at the centre, you can always take a ride on the miniature railway and try the food in a converted railway carriage. You can also treat yourself in the traditional ice cream parlour and sweet shop, and of course take a tour of the famous 6-storey, 6-sailed working mill. Built in 1878 by John Sanderson of Louth on the site of other windmills dating back to 1666, it underwent a major facelift in 2020, and we were there to follow the story and find out more about the history of this unique part of our industrial heritage.
There's been a mill on this site since 1666. Of course, they sort of burnt down, fell down, blew down. This particular one we've got behind us was the last of the ones to be built, and it was built in 1881, so it's its 140th birthday this year.
We are relatively unique. We're one of the only 6-sail working mills within the country. With it being one of the last of the line commercially built mills, if you like, that's the pinnacle of milling technology. So when you go in there, if you like, that's the most up-to-date sort of windmill that you're going to get. Our flour is stone ground with what they call a French burr stone, and it's the best milling stone in the world. And we have a set here that work brilliantly once the maintenance project is complete.
The bricks they used to build this mill were from a local brickworks in Waltham, and they weren't particularly good bricks, so hence 50, 60 years on the bricks are all beginning to crumble, and that's why we've ended up having to tar the front of the mill to protect the brickwork. And the danger of that is once you tar it, now you've got a maintenance problem. Every 5 years you've got to re-tar it. It fell into a pretty bad state of repair. Obviously these things cost a lot of money. Our previous chairman, Dr. Pip Carter, took the job on in again the late 50s, early 60s, and he's done an absolutely fantastic job. And in the year 2000 we had a big lottery grant and we got a whole new cap and sails and repairs done. And that was all the hard work that was done by the volunteers led by Dr. Carter.
Our plans now is obviously to get the mill into a fully operational state again so we can mill and sell flour. And we want to welcome a lot of people, new members to the site and get them to have a look around the mill. It's amazing on how many people are local that have never been. So we'd just like them to come up and have a look and enjoy the facility.
This pretty village in North East Lincolnshire is home to some of the most important reminders of our past, present and future. But according to some local residents, the pressure to build more affordable housing is putting this precious heritage at risk.
We are very long-term residents in Waltham, and as you quite correctly point out, is a very pretty historic village. But recently it's come under extreme pressure from building developers, and we now feel that it's time to take action against this relentless development.
It will affect the windmill purely because of the setting, really, as much as anything, because if you go to the top of the windmill and you look out over that way, you'll see plenty of land, green land and trees and what have you, and we're going to lose all that as part of the development. That will disappear, and we don't think that as part of this heritage. We feel as though that should be retained.
We accept the need for affordable housing, but North East Lincolnshire have developed 43% of their new housing stock in this very village, or within a mile of the centre of this village, over the course of the current local plan. It's too much. They're not using other sites, and we're digging our heels in and trying to preserve the rural integrity of Waltham. There are nearly 4,000 potential homes on the 2042 local plan. It will destroy the village, it will urbanise Waltham, and that's what we're pushing back against.
Well, that's all for now from this ancient and beautiful English village and the Heritage Channel team. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next month for more heritage news, views and local stories.